Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Christine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Hello, and welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Christine Madera, and we are with Katy Kieffer today, who is our Theta Healing specialist. And Katy, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So just as a little briefly thing, just tell us a little bit about what you do for a moment, and then we will move on because I've got a big question for you.
Okay. Basically, what I do is I help people to move through the subconscious beliefs, get all these different aspects of self into alignment. We clear out lots of energy blockages. We bring in information from the all that is and the highest truth of things. And really, it's very much about taking back your own power and taking back your own life and stepping into who you really are. And just getting all these different aspects of self in alignment. Because that's where we get really kind of askew. And it's
And it takes a lot of energy when you're misaligned. So that alignment is key. And actually being aligned to what it is you want to be aligned to, and not aligned to different kinds of beliefs and judgments and ideas and lifestyles that just don't serve your highest good.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So it is, as we're talking, we're moving into 2020, and there's a lot of energy shifting in the air. And so I want to know what's up for you, because I've seen some interesting things that you've been talking about laws, and I'm not a big law person, but tell me what's going on with you.
Well, this has been really interesting because we did just come through a new moon in Sagittarius, and I had watched, I don't really know a whole lot about astrology, but there's one Wonder Girl astrology. I really like her and her interpretations, and I could just feel the truth of it. And then it kind of, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I'm a Sagittarius sun and moon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so the moon was in Sagittarius when I was born. Where were we with it? Was it full? Was it, what was the cycle of the moon? I was born on the first day of the new moon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so on my birthday, it was not quite new. It was like still 3%. And the next day it hit 0%. And I'm like, whoa, because I'm like, what does this mean? So what did I come in here for with this? And I'm like, it just blew my mind. And since this new moon, it's like doors have opened and I'm being pulled forward.
No, that's so cool.
I had a really fantastic session swap with another Theta healer, and she was awesome. And she's actually where I got, oh my God, I just looked at my calendar. I had that session swap the day after the new moon in Sagittarius. So like, this is just, I love the synchronicity that happens. And I usually don't notice it until like after the fact, several days after, but it's really cool. And she's where I got the idea to ask universal laws to support me throughout the day. So what she was doing was she does morning meditation. And so during her meditation, she asked the law of synchronicity and the law of attraction to support her through the day. And she's been like, she is on her path. And I'm like, ooh, that's working for you. I should give that a try. I had never considered that before.
No. So, okay, before we go on any further, I'm sure people have heard about the law of attraction because it's hard unless you live in a cave somewhere not to have heard of that.
Right.
But I think like the idea of universal law might be really new for some people. So can you just talk just for a moment about what universal law is and how, like, why it's universal law and how that works?
So universal law, as much as I understand, which really is not a whole lot, it's the structure of our universe. It provides this structure, and not just physical structure, but emotional structure as well. So we have like the law of wisdom is an emotional law, whereas like the law of gravity is a physical law. The law of magnetism is a physical law. And so the law of electricity, that's a physical law. And so we have like the law of compassion, which is an emotional law. The law of authority, which I believe would fall under emotional law. And there's more laws than we can count, and they are tiered. So it's like you have an over law and all these other laws underneath it. And Vienna has Vienna Stibal, who is the founder of Theta Healing, has a book called The Seven Planes of Existence. And there's a chapter in here on the laws, and it's not exhaustive by any means, but it's really, I use it all the time. I'm like, okay, what law am I working with? And I use it for reference.
Yeah, and I kind of have the same understanding. That's really about the underlying structure of reality.
Yes.
And how reality works at different levels. And like the physical laws on planet Earth work in a particular way, but emotional laws are not physical laws. They work on an entirely different plane, I guess. And if you begin to work within the structure of the laws, you can begin to work with reality as it is, as opposed to reality as you would like it to be or think it's supposed to be.
Right. And there are some laws that we can kind of bend. Like the law of time, people bend the law of time all the time. It happens.
Yeah.
We do it a lot. And so that's probably the easiest one to use as an example, because that would probably be the most where people would recognize, oh yeah, I've done that. And I mean, we can do that subconsciously, but to really work with the laws, to work with them and to use them are different things. We use the physical laws all the time. And
yeah,
so
without even really thinking about it, it's just part of the structure of our lives.
Right, it is. I mean, you get in your car and you drive it. That doesn't mean you understand all the mechanics of how that combustion engine works. Right, I sure don't. I know a little bit, but not enough to go fix some major issue. But so using them and working with them are not the same thing. And to work with them consciously and actively, to work with them, we need to have certain, what Vienna calls, virtues. So faith, hope, love, trust. There's a big list that we have available in Theta Healing, and I'm certain that is not exhaustive either. So because as we evolve, I think we're getting more and more coming in.
Yeah. And I think if you are within the virtues, like even if you choose one virtue, like focusing on the virtue of love or the virtue of compassion or something, because it can get a pretty, confusing and cumbersome if you try to do all the virtues. But if you start with one, and then you can see where you're misaligned. But starting with one, I think you begin to more naturally work with the laws, like the emotional laws, because you become much more receiving of that kind of energy flow. And so, you operate in a different way in your day-to-day life when you're trying to operate within the virtue of compassion or love than you do when you're operating from your default mode.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And it's really interesting because earlier this year, Vienna had done webinars on the 4 foundational virtues. Until then, I'm like, I didn't know we had them. And so the 4 foundational virtues are kindness, courage, compassion, and wisdom.
Oh,
So
those are great.
those would be the 4 foundational. And so what happens then is when you work with those first, others will start to come in. So like playfulness is under compassion or stacked on top of compassion. It's more like they go hand in hand. And it's just really cool how that works. And since I've learned that and went, okay, let's work with these foundations, it has like expedited my growth and my clarity, and my alignment has really like come together because I worked with these 4 foundations.
So how did you work with them? Like, what do you mean when you say you worked with them?
When I say I work with them, excuse me, it's mostly one, understanding them. So I do a lot of clearing and download work around it. I've absolutely had to shift the difference between like true kindness from false kindness, true courage from false courage, and disentangled any of those. And then like as I'm moving through, others that are problematic will kind of show up. So it was really interesting because I've worked on happiness and joy and these things for a while. And in the session swap that I had, it came out, I did this after the session swap, was because we had some definitions. And this is another thing that's important that I've found, is to get creators' definition of what these virtues are. So for me, it was like the definition of happy, joy, laughter, play, and we did silly and fun too. So the first, happy, joy, laughter, and play are virtues. I don't know that silly and fun are necessarily virtues, but if you don't know what they are,
right, then you're not having any fun with them.
How are you going to have it? Right. It's, it's like you're beating the bushes for something and you don't know what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I didn't have the difference between true joy and false joy, and true play and false play. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that was big. So once I did the download on that I have creators' understanding of the difference, it made a huge impact on my clarity. So now I'm not feeling like I'm in this shadow of, like, when I'm listening to music. Music is one of those things that like just makes me happy. I love music. And so it was like, I'm not in the shadow of that anymore. I fully, whole body enjoy it in a way that I hadn't before. And so, I mean, I enjoyed it before, but now it's different. It's clear. It's like instantaneous. When that one song comes on the radio, I will blast my children out of the car.
Oh my
certain
gosh.
songs, crank it to 11. And it's like, the synchronicity, it has improved so much. I had gone to the store with my daughter. We needed some Christmas lights because the strand we had, we couldn't get it to work. So it was a late night run. I get back in the car and one of my all-time favorite songs is just starting when I start the car on. And I'm like, crank it up, let's go. It was the coolest thing ever. I had the best time.
Oh, good.
And, these are things that I don't really remember truly engaging in.
Yeah, and I just want to make a comment on that,
kid,
because I come about it in a different way than you do, really, but the same sort of thing, that there was always, with certain things, particularly things like play and joy and some of these more exuberant expressions, spontaneity, all of that stuff, there was a reserve there, so that even when something was technically fun and I was actually having, the maximum amount of fun that I really allowed myself to have, there was always this reserve there, because there was always, kind of this emotional or energetic, as I usually correlate the two of those very similarly, but emotional or energetic dampening on it. Like, you can't have too much of this. You can't have, like, if if you slip too much down this fun path, or you're too spontaneous, or you're too joyful, like, then we're in emotional territory that feels dangerous, or it feels overwhelming, or it feels like it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was able to kind of let that go, and you know this, but I just want to restate it, that it's not about getting your mental definition aligned. It's not about changing your mental definition of something. Mentalizing it is not actually helpful. But it was getting the energy and the emotion of that in that pure aligned state, that where I could actually really enjoy something and enter into it without that dampening energy that it had with it, so that it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't like I was pushing past something. It was really about stepping into it and being in like the purity of the moment with it, instead of feeling like I was, trying to either damp it down, or that I was so on the edge that I couldn't enjoy it because it was getting to be into flipping over into anxiety.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight the difference between the energetic and the mental, because if you're trying to redefine mentally without the energetic component of it, or the emotional component of it, you kind of it's hard to do. And actually, the conversation that I want to have with you after this conversation, so our next one, goes a little bit more into that, I think, if we end up down that road. So we'll see if we end up down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
But in the meantime, okay, so you've got the four primary virtues, and you've been working on those, and now then you're bringing in these 5 universal laws that are supporting you during the day.
Yeah. So, after this session swap, I'm like, okay, something else I've been doing, because in this, for me, we were working on being happy and really being able to enjoy life, that kind of thing. And so it's been really, really interesting, because at first I'm like, okay, so what laws do I want to call in? What laws are going to support me? And so really the last 5 days or so, I have been calling in and asking the law of authority, the law of wisdom, the law of compassion, the law of balance, and the law of life to really support me. And today I also added in the law of action, because that's one of those things, because I can get so in the non-physical. I'm like, okay,
I know, me
we've
too.
got to bring this out. And I'm like, okay, action that is like fun and it feels good, and it's the divine right actions for whatever it is that I'm seeking for the day, or for that, whatever it is. And it's very, moment by moment, what's the best thing. And so, because today's the first I've added an action, I still am not real sure what that's going to look like. But it was what really made a difference, I think, because it's like I can feel the shift in my body and in my energy as I like ask the laws to support me. And the law of life was one that really like made everything bright.
I bet.
I mean, it's like, so there's this song that One Republic does called Life in Color. And I've been listening to that a lot lately. And I'm like, this is life in color. And it is like vibrant. So it's, instead of having that overtone of a gray over everything, it's like that cover is lifted. And it's really cool. And I really believe that the law of life has had a hand in that, in helping me to really experience life the way, or at least more the way we were originally intended to.
Yeah, well, when I first saw those things written out, like when you had written out the 5, you were working with 5 laws, like immediately, and this is what's been happening with me a lot as well, and it sounds like it's a similar thing with you, like things have shifted from like energies that I bring in to support me, to energies that flow from the inside out.
Yes.
And that's been a big pivotal shift, and recognizing the energies that, like the energies of the law, like the law of life has its own, it is its own thing. It is its own energy pattern. It is its own consciousness. And it's something that's available, through that larger perspective of consciousness. It's not like and it's really hard to describe it, because it's not like we've got language for this kind of thing, but it is its own thing. And it's something you can call in. It's not something that you make up. It's not something that you have to create within yourself. It is something that you can just invite in to be alive within you and to come through you from the inside out. And it's hard to, if somebody's not had the experience of that, it's hard to quantify it. But I had an experience the other day that I hadn't really had before. So I've been calling in some of these things too, about life more from the inside out, as opposed to trying to call in energies, but just to allow them to flow through me the way that I think they're supposed to. And I've been doing that with nature. And that was on my friend's property. And I'd been on that property before, and it was never, it was a nice property. It was never anything that just really spoke deeply to me, but I was just walking through there, and the aliveness of the trees, like the trees were talking to me. And I'm like, oh,
that's cool.
It's like, this is nature living through me. This is nature flowing through, because there's, when everything is consciousness and you are really everything, and you're creating your whole experience, everything flows through you from the inside out, not from the outside in. And that was my first experience of nature really flowing from the inside out. So when I saw your thing on the laws, I had an immediate thing about, they're like, I could feel them. I'm like, which ones are they? Because I could feel them starting to get excited within me for me to let them through and out.
That is cool. And there is a law of nature. So that's what you're doing, is you're working with the law of nature.
All right.
And so, and it's really interesting, because we don't have to go into this massive protocol kind of thing to do that. It can be very spontaneous.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is to what if up? What if you allow a particular universal law to work through you, so that you can experience it and express it? And even if you just do it for a day, just to try it on. Okay, maybe that's not really the one that is going to support you the best, but you had an experience. That's awesome. So check out a different one and just kind of play with it and see what it does for you.
Yeah, because all of those, protocols that we go through, they're all just ways to give yourself permission. And we used to have to do a whole bunch of stuff to feel like we went through all of the hoops that we needed to. Like, we went through all 33 rungs of training. We went through all of this to be able to do something that somebody now can do spontaneously.
Right.
Because we are getting more and more acclimated to the idea that that we're living in possibility, as opposed to something that, a world that's assigned to us that we need to find a way to fit in. We've got this possibility that we can open up to, and people are experiencing that more and more as something new. They may not know what it is, but it's like this giant step forward of allowing yourself to live in a different way. And so that whatever it is that you need to do to give yourself permission to try some of this stuff is do it. It's worth it.
Very much so. It is absolutely worth it. And it's easier than I think we've realized. And I think part of that is because we do have that collective awareness that is raising at an exponential rate. And so there's more of it available in the collective, which makes it easier to do.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that 100th monkey effect.
Yeah.
That the more people have been doing this. And if you look back, hundreds of years ago, people were doing this stuff hundreds of years ago, but it was taking them their whole life of practice to be able to do some of these things. And that as more and more people over the millennia or whatever centuries have added to that and have taken it and they've started at a, you know, much further down the road, it gets faster and faster and easier and easier. And we're kind of in that place now where everything is moving forward so quickly because so many people are stepping in further and further down the road. It doesn't take what it used to.
No, it doesn't. We have a momentum going.
We do.
That's what, yeah, it's a momentum that has been established.
Yeah, and it's very mass consciousness at this point about what's available. Like I've just been watching Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I had known about for years, but I never really, I kind of been on the sidelines and I haven't really paid attention, but now I've got Gaia TV and he's all over that. And he's talking about stuff, not only the stuff that I've been, you know, working with myself for years, but he's going into some new stuff that I'm like, holy free holy, like this. And he's doing it as big programs to help hundreds and thousands of people. And so it's so available. And he's talking about people making changes, massive changes in like seconds.
Yeah.
So I think we're really speeding up, and I'm excited to get deeper into his stuff so I can see how he's doing that, because, you know, I want me some of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, his work is phenomenal. And it's like I was watching an interview with him and he's like, we mess with your sleep. I'm like, I'm not going to one of those workshops. I don't want to be overnight trying to do that. No, that one's not for me. But like I've read a couple of his books. I haven't watched his show on Gaia TV because I don't have Gaia TV. That one though, it keeps popping up. And I'm like, I might do that because I'd like to see what he's.
It to you.
Yes, you do. And I would like to see what he's up to more currently. And so, yeah, he's awesome. And he's paired up with Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton too. And so
he is, although his work seems to be the leading edge. Like, you know,
yeah.
I always thought of I had it sort of Lipton first, and then Braden surpassed Lipton, and Dispenza was kind of running around, you know, cooking up the pieces. But he seems to have rocketed forward. I think he was just more organized.
I think so. Well, and the idea that they are scientifically measuring these non-tangible things is awesome.
And they're also measuring them tangibly.
That's true.
Like through brainwave patterns. They're talking about like the gamma brainwave pattern, which is a new brainwave pattern that they've just really identified. It's been around obviously forever, but it's mostly been around like with Tibetan monks, people who spend years meditating and have that kind of elevated focus, that they're getting people not just into gamma, but like 200 times standard deviation gamma in a matter of seconds. And doing things like healing cancer and healing blindness, or going from, you know, healing and blindness back to sighted, hearing, all kinds of different things that are happening when people are getting spontaneously through the practices that they teach to these states of super possibility. Because once you have dosed your body with that level of possibility and that level of gamma ray, like everything rearranges, and that becomes so much more real that your whole body rearranges around this new reality in a moment.
Right.
And it just blows my mind. So he's got, in case I can entice you into Gaia TV a little bit more, he just did like a weekend workshop, and the whole workshop's on there. It's like 11 2-hour sessions.
Oh, wow.
So I'm watching. That's my weekend project.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So I want to come back to these laws for a moment. This is how we get off on tangents.
Yeah.
But I'm back to these laws for a moment. So tell me, like, where would you start with the law? Like, if you are brand new to this, what is the virtue and the law, or where would you start with this, so that it's something that is something that you can do in a day, like to support you in a day, rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, I got to do all of this and I got to do all of this, and you know, there's all these hoops I have to go through. what would be the place that you would think somebody should start just to get a flavor and a taste of this?
Well, to be on to do it really broadly, the law of life is what's really standing out.
Yeah, that is to me too. That's just
The law of life, because it's, even if you feel that you're experiencing a lot of life and a really good life, that doesn't mean you're also expressing it as much as you could. And so, like, asking the law of life to support you, to move through you, to be expressed through you, and just kind of see what that does. So it just feels like that's something I think we've had dampened a lot, is the concept of life. And it's because we've been in survival mode for so long.
Yeah.
That it's like, it's kind of has this shroud around it. Well, life is, okay, so I have food on my table, but it's not really the best quality food, or, I don't necessarily like it as much as I would like to have something else or whatever. The law of life can, and this is kind of coming in as I talk, the law of life can help you shift to where you recognize where you could make a better choice or make a different choice that would support your feeling of living in a different way, that would be a little elevated. And so, in any elevation is progress. Even if it's not necessarily where you really want to be, it's a vibrational lifting up that, if you continue to do that, you will get into that place of where you want to be. And when you get there, then there will be somewhere else you want to go anyway. And that feels like that is just, it's life pulling you forward. It will bring you forward. You'll get these ideas, and opportunities can drop in. And so, like, for instance, one of synchronicities happen with the law of life. My son totaled his car. Everybody was fine. Everybody was fine, but he totaled his car. We're like, okay, how are we going to help this kid get back in the car? Because it didn't have collision coverage. We thought it did. It was overlooked. Yeah. I mean, he had comprehensive, but not collision. So his car didn't get covered. It's like, okay. So, and just these different things have come together where we can help him with a down payment. He still, any financing he still has to do on his own. So, but I get this call from this dealership that I had taken my car to like 2 years ago for a recall that had happened on my car. I get this call, and he's like, we can get you into a car with no money down. I'm like, I'm not looking for a car. I'm like, but my son is. Do you have a first-time buyers
oh my God,
program? And he's like, well, we don't have that, but if you, I told him what he's looking at, what my son's looking for, and they have one on the lot.
Oh my gosh.
He said, why don't you come in and we'll see what we can do. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
This guy called me.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've been online kind of just looking to see, what's available, what's pricing, where can we go that would help him get financing as a first-time buyer with like no credit history. I mean, the kid's 19, so just no history. And it's like, I've called in the law of life, and I'm seeing it benefit my family. Because it's, and partly because I'm still responsible for them. I'm not seeing it happening with people I'm not responsible for, but if you're responsible for somebody else, your children, other people who their choices impact you, your choices impact them, it's going to make a difference there. And all it takes is one person to say, I'm going to try this, and call in the law of life.
Well, and the thing I'd like to add to that too is when you call in the law of life, and this is what happened to me with nature, and I didn't realize I was calling in the law of life, but I was asking life to live more fully through me, so maybe I was calling in the law of life. Excuse me. Is to recognize the aliveness of things. Like I was, when I was walking through that forest with my friend on her property, I recognized that I had the choice to see this as I had always seen it, as just a nice, pretty place to hang out, or to really receive what I was experiencing, which was everything being alive and kind of not talking to me with a voice, but like talking to me with their energy, and being able to receive that and to experience that and to recognize the aliveness of it. And so if you're calling in the law of life, begin to recognize the aliveness of the food that you eat, the trees that you see, your pets, your house. I mean, my house has a name, but she has a personality. To recognize the aliveness, the consciousness within things that we consider inanimate, and invite that to come through. A lot of people have named their cars, and to them, their car has a personality. So invite the aliveness of that to it. If you use any kind of herbal medicine or essential oils or something, I use the essential oils, and I'm always calling through and recognizing the life force within those. So, doing your part, not just to call it in, but to recognize it as it's happening and to really call it forward so that it's in interaction with you, as opposed to, expecting something to show up for you. You want to start recognizing it at the same time.
That's a really good point. Because we can call it in, but if we either ignore it or just don't know how to recognize it, we're not going to get the full benefit.
Yeah, because if we're expecting something to happen to us, it's not really that same experience as when we're allowing it to happen through us. And that's where life is lived through us. It's not happening to us. So being able to, participate in that as much as you possibly can will help that energy flow through.
I agree.
So can we do a quick, you're a downloader, and we talked about that. We've done that on other calls with you. Can we just download the Law of Life for everybody?
Yeah, we can do that. Do you want to walk through the whole meditation, the going up and all?
What's your intuition on that?
Yeah, we should, because it feels like there's going to be somebody who's not familiar with it.
Okay,
which is fine. Okay, and we'll walk through it pretty quickly so that it's
all right, good.
Short and sweet. Okay, so just noticing the breath and taking a few deep breaths and noticing the heart space, like really feeling the soles of your feet and allowing your heart space to connect in with the center of the earth. And then drawing up the earth energy, bringing it up through your feet, bringing it up through your body and out the crown of your head into a beautiful ball of light. And lifting that ball of light up out of the Earth's atmosphere, moving up through layers and layers of light, up through a golden light, up through a thick substance, which is the laws of the universe, coming up through the pink mist. The pink mist is the law of compassion. And coming out into a bright white iridescent light. This bright white iridescent light is the energy of creation itself. And just knowing that as you move through this, you are also going within, because this energy of the all that is within you as well. And so from this iridescence, we ask that the law of life come in and support you for the day. That you recognize the life that is around you and the life that is within you. If you would like to receive this, please say yes. And we ask that Creator show you the beauty of life, the enjoyment of life, that you know how to receive, express, and allow life itself in all its glory, in all its beauty. We ask the Creator to bring that through every cell of the body, through all levels of the being, and to align all of you, with the pure essence of life itself. Thank you, Creator. It is done, it is done, it is done. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, that felt really good.
Oh, man, it always feels good to do that stuff. All right, so tell people how they can find you if they've been inspired to want to do more work with you.
You can find me at awakentheinnerlight.com, and also coffeewiththeangels.com. Both of them, they're separate sites because Coffee with the Angels is my books, and the third book should be coming out.
Oh my gosh.
It'll be out in December. I'm formatting right now, and so it should be out in a couple of weeks. So if you're listening to this in January, it will already be on Amazon.
You're going to buy all three, Coffee with the Angels, 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3, and then it'll be on to the fourth one, and the fourth one will be the last one in that series. But either way, you can get in touch with me from either of those websites.
Okay, and you can always find all of our guests, all of our, everything that we do on conversationsfromtheedge.net. So net, like a network. So conversationsfromtheedge.net. And just keep tuning back. All kinds of different conversations with Katy and with other people, and just a lot of fun coming our way. All right. Well, thank you again, Katy. We will be talking to you again very, very soon.
Thank you. I so enjoyed this.
It's always so much fun, isn't it?
It is.
This is your host, Christine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.